Hello and welcome back to Space Engineers. In today's video, we're looking at another small block ship. And this is another small block ship that is fairly large and features very limited firepower, and it's called the Carnuba Multijet, which is this lovely thing I'm currently standing on. So for such a large ship, we've only got 2 gatling guns to blast our enemies with, but to make up for that, we have the ability to carry quite heavy objects at the back. We got currently, when you spawn this in, a survival kit set up with a bunch of batteries, connectors, hydrogen tanks, and everything you need to actually have the survival kit functioning and useful. So there it is right there. But if you don't want to use that, you can replace this with something of a custom design, such as a bunch of warheads, some thermonuclear bombs, or even a bunch of horses strapped together with duct tape. It's entirely up to you. Yes, we're going to play with that a bit later. Coming all the way around over to here, pressing F10, finding it in the spawn menu. The multijet is 2,880 small blocks, using the Sparks of the Future, Warfare 1, Heavy Industry, Warfare 2, Decorative Block number 2, and Wasteland DLC packs. We've got some nice information about it on the Steam Workshop page, which also includes all the important stuff on this ship, so we can see our batteries, our small batteries, large hydrogen tanks, small hydrogen tanks, O2H2 generators, oxygen tanks, and small cargo containers. So go give this thing a thumbs up, move around towards the very front. My character can now bugger off for the moment, so off he goes. There we are, activate his jetpack so he doesn't fall continuously. Have a quick look around the outside, we'll then get in, drive it around, go down to our planet, drop off the little payload at the back, and that will be that. So at the very front, this is what we get for the Carnuba Multijet. So what we can see front and center is a bunch of green blocks. We've got green in a light color, very sickly green color, then we've got some in some darker green. Right above this section we've got a bunch of glass window blocks which is on a hinge, where we do have a very handy button underneath this side section. We can press that, that'll lift all the way up and allow you to get into the standard cockpit you see right there. Moving around onto the side, we've got some great use for our neon tubes acting as a little handle to be able to grab hold of and get up into that cockpit. And over here we can see a bunch of great use for our wasteland spotlight, just lighting up the darkness. Over on that section we can see a camera to help aim our gatling gun. Then right below here is the gatling gun to fire it with a unfinished hinge on the side, acting as an ammo belt. Pulling away from that and moving around onto the side there's our side section on our wing. We can see our hydrogen thrusters. Hydrogen and atmospheric thrusters are the only form of thrusters that appear on the ship, so we are good for pretty much everywhere. Yes, round over to here, we can see our bombs for our hydrogen thrusters. We can see our payload. There's an atmospheric thruster. If we were to look at it at the back, there we go. We've got an LCD screen with a lovely logo in a pinky colour. We'll come back to the payload a bit later on, so we'll just move all the way up and look down, but that's how that's been attached up. Some great use for our beam blocks, going across onto our steel blocks on the side there. We can clearly see the tops of our atmospheric thrusters, as well as the pattern in the dark and the light green steel blocks. Going towards the front, we've got even more great block work. Into this section, we can just about make out our hinge to lift up and down our front windows. And just dropping down and coming underneath it, there we go. There's our button to open up the cockpit, we've got one on both sides. There's a few batteries to help power this thing, a bunch of hydrogen thrusters to keep us off the ground while on our planet. There's our connector to dock this thing up and refuel our hydrogen tanks. There's our gun on the opposite side. Then over onto this section we've got little, like landing skates, so we don't land down in a traditional way onto magnetic plates or landing gear. We simply plop ourselves down onto this section, which is where wasteland spotlights are currently sitting. Then onto this section, this is our payload, where we can see our medium cargo container, the bottom of a survival kit, an O2H2 generator, then the bottom of a connector. We've got a couple of merge blocks so we can stack this up if you want to carry multiple at once. Over into this section, which is the behind part, a programmable block, a gyroscope, a bunch of hydrogen tanks, a custom weapon controller, and a bunch of buttons to play around with. Moving around onto this section, there's our connector, there's a battery. Over into this one, even more hydrogen tanks, there's our survival kit, there's another button. We can see a small cargo container, a remote control block, a weapons locker, and over onto this one, there's the exact same as the opposite side with a connector and a battery. Moving all the way up, we can see how we've got armoured panels covering up the top of those batteries, even more great use for our beam blocks, connected onto our merge box, connected up to the main body of the ship. There's a parachute and a couple of batteries, and there it is at the very front. And that is a very brief look around the outside of the Carnuba Multijet. And it does look fantastic with how it's been set up. A very sleek design overall, a lot of detail has been put onto this, and I absolutely love the paint scheme going all the way around this in the light and dark green colours. What I'll do now is just grab hold of my character, and we can fly all the way up to the ship, come to our payload and start pressing some of these buttons. So all the way up to here, what we got is a light button, turn it on and off. So we make a big bright green colour, coming off our survival kit. There we go. We then got our weapon lockers, store a few bits and bobs inside. There is our small cargo container, which is labelled the care package. So put a few foods in there, maybe a small plushie toy if you wanted to. And then there is our survival kit to recharge on. Coming around and towards the back of this thing where we had even more buttons to play around with. Right down here we then got our switch locks, then got our top mergers. Then down over to here we got our bottom mergers. And there is the other switch lock, which is going to be for that one, and that one for over there. For the custom weapon controller, we've got nothing really going on with this. It is just there for decoration. And there's our programmable block, but we currently have nothing set up on it. But if you could think of something useful to put on this, you can do without interfering with the systems of this payload. Just come out of that and look around over to there. Another weapon socket to drop a few bits and bobs inside. And I think now it's time to come around to the front and get into the main cockpit. So pressing the button, that'll now lift all the way up and allow us to get into the cockpit. It will not drop down after a short delay. There is no time block, there is no programmable block controlling this. So we've got all the time in the world to get into that cockpit, and then we'll press number 1 to shut it all the way down. In first person view, this is what we can see all the way around. So we do have a fairly limited view at the front here. Our side panels are almost blocked up, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because we do have cameras on this. So yes, as for the controls on this ship, coming to third person view and coming all the way around, number 3 is going to be for our 2 gatling guns to fire them both together. Number 4 and 5 is going to be for our cameras we see at the front there. So we have the left one, then we've got the right one. Number 6 is going to be for our connector underneath to turn it on and off, with number 7 being to lock and unlock it. Number 8 and number 9 is then to turn on and off our atmospheric thrusters and then hydrogen thrusters, so you can just save on a bit of power if you wanted to. Onto tab number 2, this is our merge block for our payload at the back there, so we can simply switch that off and drop it to its destination, which we will do in just a bit. But first of all, it's time to fly this thing around and see how it handles. So moving forwards, this is what we get. So we're not the fastest thing in the world, but we don't have to be for a dropship. Coming to a stop, that is what we get. It does feel a little bit faster than moving forwards. Doesn't really feel like I need to do a 180 on this, so we can simply let this naturally come to a stop. And well, you just have to plan ahead while charging towards the station. Moving left, that's what we get. A surprising amount of speed on that. The moving right, there we go. Moving down, and then moving up. Moving up should be faster than everything else considering how many thrusters are underneath there, and it certainly shows. Might even need to do a flip 180 to slow this down a bit more, and there we go. So yes, you don't need to do a 180 to slow this thing down, but to stop it from moving up, you might have to. But yes, as for gyroscope controls, this is what we get. We've got a nice lot of weight on this. Yes, it's very meaty for controls. It's definitely not a small fighter, but it is what I prefer when it comes to this size of ship. But now what we can do is come down to the Earth-like planet, drop over the payload, then maybe crash it into a mountainside. So all the way down here, that'll do quite nicely. And yeah, that'll do. We'll now pace it down, and we should be fine while flying around on a planet. So here we go, we're about 70 meters per second. I will drop down just a little bit. We're now at 100. And away goes the payload all the way down. And I think what I'll do is just find the free camera, and we're going to try and find out where that's gone. But there it goes all the way down. And I don't think it's going to deploy, I think it's just going to slam. Yes, it is. Ah, I should have checked that before dropping it. Yes, if you did have parachutes in there, if you actually had the canvases in there even, it would have definitely survived and would have been very useful. If I was a person on the ground in desperate need of this, I would be a little bit disappointed to end up with this. Anyway, one final thing to do, of course, is to slam this into a mountainside. And we won't slam it into a mountainside, I'll just slam it into the floor, so that will be a bit quicker. So yes, as I said, it's a lovely ship with great design, a nice bit of functionality, so if you do wish to download it and play around with it yourself, there will be a link to it in the description below. There will also be the link to the horses I'm currently using in this WOD, so they are a bit of fun. I'll be back for another video somewhat soon. Bye bye.